And I'm standing there, and then I realize why I'm there is to ensure the honesty and integrity of a vote recount. So I sat down quickly, and things sort of went back, and so she leans over to me, and she goes, "Hit me. I know you want to hit me." She goes, "No, you don't want to hit me. You want to shoot me, don't you?"
And for our listeners, Representative Rogers sponsors at least 3, if not more, anti-gun bills every single session, regardless of whether they are in the minority or in the majority.
Correct.
And she is what most of us consider in the Second Amendment support group, basically a civilian disarmament person.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, and this is going to play a role in a couple of minutes, but I wanted to use that as a background because we're here again.
That's why I wear this no hitting button.
Because it happened again with somebody different. We're going to get to that in just a minute.
Yeah.
I mentioned the pearls, and
yes.
I mentioned the AR-15 with the pearls. And there's a reason behind that. And in fact, I have to admit, during the hearings on a couple of these anti-gun bills, you offered me some costume pearls, like those similar to what you would see at Mardi Gras down in New Orleans. And I refused it, not really understanding why they were there. And then at this executive hearing that we were at, or executive session, I said, "Let me have as many as you wish to give me." And I also, for full disclosure, was wearing a shirt. "I will not comply."
That is correct.
But we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about the pearls before we go any further.
Yes, and that was the point of asking. And this has to do with the organization that you are a member of, which is the Women's Defense League of New Hampshire.
I'll even go further back than that. Being raised by truly, my mother was a lady. I'm not as much a one, but my mother was a lady, and growing up in Dallas in a very different era, my mother would say, "You do not leave the house without a string of pearls and heels, and if you have on a coat, a jacket, or something in the fall, you have leather gloves in your pockets." That's just how it was. So mother was not exactly June Cleaver, but my mother always had a string of pearls. And when I went off to college, even though times were a little tough, I got a string of pearls for graduation. Okay, and I have since bequeathed them to my great niece, but pearls have been part of my life, professionally and profoundly, since I was little. So I've always worn, anybody that knows me prior to me coming to New Hampshire, anybody that ever worked with me anywhere in the world, knew that I would show up to a meeting, contract negotiation, whatever it was. If I wasn't on site at a coal plant, I had a string of pearls. So it was just habit. And I have a lot of pearls. I'll say that in full disclosure. So when the Women's Defense League was formed in July of 2014, I can't believe it's been that long.
It has, 5 years.
It has. By default or design, or both, I'm not sure, I became sort of the lead person to go to the legislature, partly because I was retired, partly because I have some understanding of the process and I'm pretty good at research and reading bills. So I would go to hearings dressed professionally with at least one string of pearls. So that's the background. But at one particular hearing in Reps Hall a couple of years ago, I think it was Senate Bill 116, the first round of the Senate bills on constitutional carry. Okay, I was there with 2 of my colleagues from the Women's Defense League who also happened that day to wear pearls as part of their professional attire. And the hearing, once it was over, it was quite animated and long and painful. But when it was over, as we were departing, out in the hallway was young Adam Sexton interviewing one of the women from Mom's Demand. There were 4 or 5 of them sitting back behind us, yammering. And so out in the hallway, he interviewed this one woman who refused to reveal her name. And she says, She says, those women in pearls. She says, I felt like I was in front of a firing squad. Okay? That's how she identified us. And I'm thinking...
Always the demonization.
Always, always, always. And I'm thinking, gee whiz. And so a few days later, I don't even remember who it was, but said, gosh, I didn't know you guys were wearing assault pearls. And we thought that was pretty funny. Okay? And so from that point on, I always wore pearls, but our people made it a point to be identified by wearing a string of pearls, or 2 or 3 or 10.
Right.
Okay?
So basically, while they are on the side of the aisle that would normally employ this, you folks decided to employ Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals. Number 5, ridicule.
Well,
you made it your own. If they're going to accuse you of assault pearls, then let us wear them proudly.
And we do. And it was always the case with the Women's Defense League. When we went to hearings and we would encourage people to come out and look after their own interest and testify on these bills, we also had stickers, lapel stickers. You may recall those beautiful teal-colored stickers with the Women's Defense League logo on it.
Yes.
And the idea was for legislators to be able to look into the audience, into the people in the, whether it was Reps Hall or hearing room, and say, okay, these people, I don't even have to listen perhaps, but I do know their how they believe or how they feel about this particular piece of legislation. So we've always done that, But the seriousness this year was such that we needed to step it up, because for the first time in a very long time, Democrats are in charge of the keys to the asylum, and we thought, okay, we want people to know who's who and who's what. So we took it upon ourselves, because we fund everything ourselves. We're volunteers, right? So we found a really good deal on some very inexpensive costume pearls, and we brought them to the first hearing, I guess, at...
about a month ago.
About a month ago. That was those 2 bills in Ed, House Education,
Correct.
And then that went on to criminal justice. And we had a number of our ladies there, all wearing, if not their own, a string of pearls. So anybody who was coming to the hearing who was opposing these bad gun bills, we offered them a string of pearls and a sticker. The sticker said, hold the line. You may remember see those. And the idea was for legislators who may not look at the sign-up sheet, or maybe want to test the wind or pulse of the attendees, could see who's what. We don't wear red T-shirts. I think women in T-shirts at the State House is very disrespectful, but that's just me. My mother would probably agree with me. Nevertheless, that was what we did. And a number of the legislators, when the bills went to criminal justice, who are supporters of the Women's Defense League, and who have been for many years, and like lots of organizations, they make little lapel pins, and like, I don't know, Planned Parenthood or Granite State or any of those folks, people tend to collect those lapel pins. It's sort of a long-standing tradition. And of course we had them as well, and have them. And for years, nobody ever said boo. But all of a sudden, men in pearls. Oh my goodness. And at the red flag hearing in Reps Hall, the queen of Moms Demand Every Town Bloomberg, Shannon Watts, shows up to the hearing. I guess somebody flew her in.
Croc TV.